Well, welcome, Rob. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
You too.
In person for once.
Absolutely, of course. And you are our head of special project logistics. Can you tell us a little bit what this role entails and also how you came to working in this field?
Indeed. So I think I'm biased, but I think I have one of the best jobs in Maersk. And also, I think one of the most unknown, and certainly until we had a bit of a impromptu debut with all of our work in response to the company's needs with regards to COVID response, PPE transport, a lot of the more specialized tasks that we've kind of had a bit of it coming out over the last 18 months. So special project logistics is a relatively unknown piece of Maersk, and we're not that well or that publicly advertised, sometimes on purpose. Given the nature of the sensitive work we do for many of the clients around the world, we'll work for a lot of governments, a lot of non-governmental organizations, NGOs, like the UNs and the UNICEFs and the Red Crosses of the world. And we do quite a lot of austere area work in industrial project logistics, so building greenfield projects, whether that's ports or new wind energy facilities, and a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes that I don't think perhaps are things that are maybe not things that many people think Maersk does.
Yes.
And it's actually a lot of fun to be the quiet partner for the most part. Is that we work for a lot of incredible companies, but making sure that they get their supply chains connected in ways that they perhaps couldn't rely on anyone else but us for, which is fantastic.
So quite a diverse portfolio, but how did you come to work in this field?
So truth in advertising, I am not originally a logistics guy by background whatsoever. I spent a great deal of time mostly in the US government with our intelligence services and military. So, and I think that speaks for a lot of the officers and colleagues that serve with us at the Special Projects Division, is a lot of us are from very diverse backgrounds. Some of our actually most talented program managers are themselves not logisticians by original training. They happen to pick it up along the way and have a natural talent for it. And I think that's a lot of how we do our recruiting, is not only do we have the industry veterans with 30-40 years of incredibly technical experience, we also have the naturals who know how to work in austere areas and get things done. So it's, I'd say, it's one of the most diverse business units in the company, and we're also spread out all over the world. So we've got teams on 3 continents now, and we're hopefully going to have more in the next 18 months, opening up a couple of new shops. So it's not something that you can really train or really develop a career for. It's very much catch as catch can, and you have to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, but it also sounds like your background actually plays a part in the types of work that you do. So
I think I may have been in supply chain work for much longer than even I knew. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah. And now you touched upon, of course, the US. Can you tell us any changes or trends that you see in the US supply chain?
So, I mean, obviously, all of the pressure that the network is seeing on the West Coast is not going to go away anytime soon. And we think that's going to be an extended challenge for both us and our customers for quite a while yet, given the challenges we're seeing between the U.S. West Coast and Chinese East Coast at the time. But as the U.S. does get the move forward toward more total vaccination, toward a widespread treatment program for COVID, I think that we're going to see a return to normal in some of the inland movements we've seen over the last 6 months, and certainly going forward in the future. With respect to the stuff that we do at Special Projects North America, a lot of that is the industrial projects work, and that's been seen a big slowdown during COVID, just because it's so human intense. I mean, where we've seen, and perhaps other business units, a huge uptick in volumes, where we see retail and FMCG and technology just go through the roof, and they've had incredible performance years, not just for Maersk, but for our customers as well. On the other side of that, so the wind energy, a lot of the other industrial scale projects that require a lot of human intense interaction and close technical supervision, have actually slowed down an incredible amount over the last 18 months. And that's been quite unfortunate for the sectors, like for the energy sector, for a lot of the heavy manufacturing sectors. We've seen a big drop off in that activity. But now that the U.S. is starting to pick up steam again, the economy is kind of getting off its finding its feet again. I think we're going to see a resurgence in that over the next, say, 2 years. And I think you'll see that type of thing manifest in different waves all over the world. And we've seen that in our the other teams, the special projects teams here in Europe, and also in WCA and elsewhere that are developing their own capabilities. I think we're going to see those kind of almost counterintuitive. So where you see the larger business of Maersk in the traditional containerized freight business picking up in ways that we didn't expect during COVID, we're also seeing downturns in other places. So it's a bit of a balance.
Well, you've already touched upon the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the US supply chain. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, and also how that's affecting global supply chains? Because, of course, you have been transporting quite a lot of the PPE and those vital equipment to different parts.
Indeed. So the US is not as much of an origin for a lot of that. A lot of it is an origin in Asia, but it's purchased by US businesses or purchased by US government agencies and exported elsewhere to those in need. And we've done quite a lot of that by both airlift and sea lift over the last 18 months. I think that is also one of those issues that's going to continue to shift destination, but will always be likely be a major Asia origin for the foreseeable future. So we have a lot of purchasing customers who are buying PPE in very, very large quantities and shipping it elsewhere. And now, to kind of shift and add complexity to even that situation with COVID that was already a tough thing to deal with, certainly for our North American colleagues and the people they're serving. We've now got other humanitarian crises in Haiti, so we've had an earthquake strike in Haiti, and we're assisting with planning for humanitarian response in Haiti with our United Nations partners and other NGOs, and now we've seen the developments in Afghanistan that are placing additional pressure on our humanitarian partners as well. So we're stepping up to assist them with planning as we can. So never a dull moment, for sure. And whether it's humanitarian aid or government and defense work or industrial projects work, I think the key, at least to our colleagues, is to be flexible when you wake up.
Of course, we're going through a global pandemic, but as you said, natural disasters happen, changes in regime. These are very serious topics. So how are the humanitarian and NGOs, how are they holding up in the mix of all this?
So just as Maersk has had to kind of change its operating paradigm, not just from the work from home environment, but also from the kind of remote operating environment, the way that the humanitarian aid world or really the humanitarian aid and developmental assistance world has had to change is to go both more global and more local. And what I mean by that is where, once for, say, disaster responses or other large aid sustainment programs had very long international supply chains, what we've seen is a reshoring and localization of a lot of that, whether that's a transfer to local cash assistance, as it has been in, I believe that a couple incidents in Honduras and Guatemala, a hurricane there in the last hurricane season. We actually anticipated a lot of inflows of humanitarian aid from the international assistance community, but what we saw was much more of a localized cash-based approach. So I think in the same way that we've learned lessons as a logistics partner and transporter for those international organizations, they've also been trying to adapt their own model to make things more efficient.
Okay, and changing tact a little bit, can you share how the UN's logistics and also decarbonisation focus is going to be for the rest of this year?
That has been a topic that's come up a number of times, and not just so. There's certainly a growing focus on decarbonisation across the humanitarian and government supply chains in a big way, and that's been going on for quite a number of years now. We've also seen an increased focus on low impact or sustainable packaging and reducing waste in packaging overall. So there's actually, oddly enough, there's a UN task force on this, is how one reduces the impact of a peacekeeping mission by reducing overall wastage of packaging and wastage of everything that we would end up using in packing and creating containers, all the way down to the plastics that are used to package a meal.
So that detail is actually being worked on or looked at right now?
I was surprised when we were brought onto the task force and brought on as advisors to it to learn how detailed the thought processes are and how long range people are thinking. Because if you think of, say, a peacekeeping operation or humanitarian aid effort in a place like the Democratic Republic of Congo that's been going on for 23 years, I think now. It's a very, very large budget operation which produces an amazing amount of waste. So when the planners at the UN that we work with think about that, they think in 10-year cycles. How do we reduce the overall wastage in packaging and shipping over the next decade? And when you look at a decade worth of that operation, it gets quite large. So we're learning lessons from them. They're learning lessons from us. Actually, it's nice to see. I believe one of the most recent group acquisitions was a packaging company. It was a food packaging company, and we're looking to bring that expertise in to assist and kind of inform the UN's effort to see how we can do better. So the sky's the limit on that, and we're getting involved in ways that I think we never would have predicted.
Wow, so it's that unpredictability, but also opportunities for us to actually make a real impact.
At every turn. And one that we just ran into this morning was really with the launch of the first carbon neutral vessel in a couple of years. One of the complementary challenges for that is the bunkering and distribution infrastructure for the long range deployment of those vessels over time. And that is an entirely new industry being born because of Maersk's leadership in the community and kind of what we're doing. But what hasn't been broached yet is how to actually build those facilities. And that's actually one thing that our shop does quite well and does the planning for quite well is how do you build a bunkering facility in a place where it doesn't exist? How do you design a methanol supply chain to get methanol or ammonia in places where it doesn't exist yet? So, like you said, I think we find opportunities from every corner that we never expect, and it's fantastic work.